know if he's had any contact with his family.
Sure, he's had contact with his wife, yes.
In what way?
And family members. I don't think she's visited yet, obviously, because she doesn't want to be ambushed by the press. So she hasn't visited him at the jail yet, no.
All right, that's the attorney for the accused Long Island serial killer, who is still presumed innocent. But for the sake of discussion, we're talking about serial killers tonight, and he is the highest profile accused serial killer right now in the country, arrested for the murders of 3 women. He's married, and he has a family and has been married for years. And I'm wondering about this relationship between this accused serial killer and his spouse and his wife. Take a look. Matt Johnson, Court TV crime and justice correspondent, was outside the home of the accused killer and bumped into his wife.
How are you holding up? I know you can't talk about the case. How are you holding up?
What you see, right? It is what it is.
How's your children doing?
Not going to indulge in that one. Not going there.
Have you spoken to your husband?
And I'm not going there either. That's already been, his lawyers already answered that question.
How are you getting through the day with media and with all the questions? I know it must be tough.
Moment by moment, not hour by hour, moment by moment.
Obviously, the aftermath has been excruciating for the family of the accused killer. Here's what the New York Post is now reporting on this. The estranged wife of the accused Long Island serial killer is seeking to get all of his legally owned guns returned to her, arguing they are marital property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Her attorney argues in court that in court documents, she has a right to retain ownership of any of the nearly 300 guns that were legally purchased. He also claims any outstanding jewelry, clothing, and cash removed from their home should also be returned to the estranged wife, who said is entitled to at least the marital assets pending the outcome of the divorce. She has filed for divorce at this point. So I want to bring back in my guests, Dr. Gary Brucata, Siobhan Scott, and Dr. Judy Ho. I want to focus right now, before we get to the aftermath of this, right, is like the actual lives that they were living, right? So you've got an accused serial killer, and he's got a wife, and he's got a family, he's got a house. How could someone potentially balance that? Dr. Judy Ho?
Well, Vinny, we see some extreme compartmentalization with some of these serial killers, and this is not the first time that we've seen a serial killer that has a kind of a very ho-hum type of typical normative civilian life, and somehow they're able to still commit these egregious crimes in this other side of their life. And that extreme compartmentalization also speaks to why sometimes when you look at these serial killers and you think about how can they just not even have those emotions, those reactions that most of us might, you know, the lack of empathy that we see with some of these individuals, that compartmentalization allows them to do it. It's almost like this one part of their brain just shuts off so that they can do all of this, and then they go back to their civilian life. And sometimes it's also designed that way, meaning they're trying to put on this typical life, be a productive member of the community so that they wouldn't come to the attention of law enforcement or anybody that they live in or have relationships with.
Siobhan Scott, I want to pick up on that point. Do you think a serial killer can actually love their spouse?
I think they attach in perhaps a way that's different than the way the rest of us attach. But they certainly can seemingly connect. They can go through the motions of love. They can be nurturing to their children. But it all goes back to this very unusual way they compartmentalize.
July 27th, 2005, in the Wichita Eagle. I want to read this. This is relative to the BTK serial killer. Citing emotional stress, Paula Rader, Dennis Rader's wife at the time, requested and was granted an emergency divorce from the BTK serial killer Tuesday. She had been married to Dennis Rader for 34 years. Sedgwick County District Judge Eric Yost signed the papers the same day they were filed, waiving the 60-day waiting period required for most divorces. Then in 2019, Cosmopolitan did an article following up with her new last name, Dietz, has never given a public statement about her husband or his crimes. She didn't go to any of his hearings, and she's never written to him or visited him in prison. Dr. Gary Brucato, 34 years of marriage. How are you able to keep a secret to that level, of that depth, of that darkness that was in this man's life, that he's, for 34 years, you know, those of us who are married, you know what a marriage is, you know, two become one. How do you think that happened over the course of 34 years? He's able to keep this deep, deep, dark secret.
Well, first of all, when you're dealing with people who compartmentalize, one of the things you want to realize is that they probably have a very black and white idea about the same type of person. So, for example, a woman, in the eyes of an individual who commits serious sexual homicide, might be kind of pure or elevated, or someone that you'd never heard a hair on their head. But then one could go out and sexually assault victims, torture them, kill them with no more compunction than one would have killing a housefly. And this often has its origins in relationships that the person had in youth with certain female people that they knew, whether it was a mother, women that they knew throughout their lifespan, etc. But the second point that's important to bear in mind is there's something of a misnomer about psychopathic people, that they lack empathy. What people really mean when they say that is that they lack compassion. Empathy has to do with the capacity to read a person's face and understand the emotions they probably feel. And because these individuals can do that, they can pretend that they feel compassion towards people, but then they don't. So, for example, a person could go into a shopping mall and see a little boy that's become detached from his mother, read that his face is sad and frightened, offer him help, and then take him off somewhere and kill him with no compassion. And so what I think is with some of these people that have these split ideas about certain kinds of people, the family can become this island of purity, this place where people are good and the women out in the rest of the world are terrible or something like that. And then there's this ability to kind of do what you should do, to act like someone that loves, because you can feel what people are feeling. You just don't care about it.
Dr. Judy Ho, now looking at the other side of the coin, right? For the spouses, 34 years she's married to this man, and at the moment all of this becomes public, I mean, it's over. I mean, she never contacts him. She doesn't talk about him. She doesn't go to court. Nothing. Completely. I mean, that has to be such a shock to your system. 34 years of marriage, and then all of a sudden you realize, I don't even know who this guy is.
Absolutely, Vinny. And, you know, most of these spouses, that's what they say. They say, I had no idea. Really, there were no warning signs. So not only are you living with that shock and just the all of a sudden having been cut off from somebody who you thought you loved and was your family, it's also the questioning of your own decision making. Going over conversations in your head, going over different moments in your marriage and wondering, did I miss something? Did I not catch something? So it really causes a post-traumatic stress reaction oftentimes for these spouses. And then, of course, the isolation and alienation, because no matter how many good deeds you did and no matter how well respected you were in the community, now you're kind of forever known as the spouse of this serial killer, the spouse of this criminal. And even if you're completely innocent, this is the black mark that is on you now. And you might lose a huge sense of the community that you had before, or feel like you can't go out without having to defend yourself or thinking about what people might be saying about you. So I think, of course, the lives of the spouses are way turned upside down, and sometimes the attention is not on them in a very good way at this very critical time where they need the most help and the most love from their community.